Quickly, let's begin with the breaking update that we are getting to know on part of the Enforcement Directorate has now initiated a FEMA investigation against the BBC, and this has happened since last month, where the ED had recorded the statements of the BBC executives, and the agency has initiated FEMA investigation post the income tax surveys that were conducted at least for 2 back-to-back days in February last month, in February. As we are looking at those developments that is now taking place, it seems there is no end to the troubles of the BBC after the income tax surveys. Now FEMA probe against BBC has been initiated as ED has now begun the investigation on BBC. Let me straight away go across to Bhavtosh now joining us live. Bhavtosh, good morning. What more do we know of these details of exactly certain violations of FEMA that has been done here?
Good morning, Amita. What we have gathered from sources is that FEMA proceedings have been initiated against BBC. Remember, it was in February that that Income Tax Department had carried out a survey in which they had said that there were certain anomalies that were found when they had carried out the survey, after which BBC in fact issued a statement from London saying that they are cooperating with the agencies and they hope that this matter gets resolved. What we have gathered is that an old FEMA inquiry is still being carried out, and it's civil proceedings that are happening. And FEMA matter is a civil, it's not a criminal offense. But certain statements have been recorded of senior executives of BBC, and this is happening since February. And this is not a new case that have been registered by the Enforcement Directorate. Yes, but one can say that yes, trouble is mounting for the BBC, and FEMA proceedings are presently going on against the British Broadcasting Corporation. One has to wait and see what statement will be issued by the BBC, and whether BBC will be issuing any statement post the development that has taken place, in which Enforcement Directorate has now initiated FEMA proceedings against British Broadcasting Corporation.
But Bhavtosh, what really amounts to a FEMA violation, if you can help our viewers also understand in which exactly that we are looking at the ED also coming into the picture?
Well, as far as FEMA is concerned, it's a Foreign Exchange Maintenance Act and violation under Foreign Exchange Maintenance Act violation. That's what we have gathered. It's not a money laundering offense, but it's a civil proceeding that have been initiated against them. What Income Tax Department had issued a statement when they had completed their raids, they had completed the survey. At that point of time, they had said that there were certain anomalies that were found in their book of records and their in their accounts.
And you've seen that surveys that were also conducted on part of the Income Tax Department. There, Mr. Memon is with us here on the broadcast. Sir, what do you make of this as far as the agency has initiated FEMA investigation post the income tax survey against the BBC that happened back in February, sir?
Well, in February, when income tax raids were conducted, they were found to be in close proximity to the controversy that was raised by the publication by BBC, which was not liked by the government of India, because that was very critical of the government, or rather the Prime Minister. In any case, when income tax raids were conducted, the opinions flew, including I had the opportunity to hear Justice Nariman, who after his retirement addressed some Ahmadi lecture in which he expressed his displeasure at the manner in which the BBC documentary was banned and followed by the income tax raid. But in any event, let us be fair enough as far as the crime is concerned. If Income Tax Department had raided and they have collected some material which would justify and which would stand before the court of law the need for ED investigation, then we could not, find fault with the system. Whether it is BBC or anybody, if there is any criminal offence which needs to be probed, it has to be probed fairly, without any preconceived notions or without any vendetta. So I am afraid whether ED is doing it entirely within the framework of the law, this is what people may suspect. So I think it's a test for ED also to stand up and convey to the people of this country that this is not a politically supported witch hunt, but this is a procedure which we have to follow and nobody is about it.
All right, Mr. Majid Memon, thank you very much for joining us here on the broadcast, sir. So, Bhavtosh, as you've been also listening to those reactions coming in, as they have been saying that there shouldn't be any preconceived notions as far as FEMA violations that are also concerned, with the ED now stepping in. As far as also the income tax survey which were previously raised, we have seen how the opposition parties have been crying witch hunt.
Well, obviously, opposition parties at that point of time had in fact raised a finger at the centre, saying that it was centre who in fact targeted BBC primarily because of a controversial documentary and airing of their attempts to air that documentary here. Remember, at that point of time, there was also a lot of fracas at various university campuses, but Income Tax Department clarified that two things should not have been linked. But the fact remains that Enforcement Directorate has now sources within Enforcement Directorate has said that yes, there is a FEMA pending FEMA proceedings are presently going on against BBC here in India, and that statements of various officials of BBC, including, I must add here, Amita, some senior editorial staff of BBC have also been called in, and their statements have also been recorded. This is not something that is new, that has happened today, but it has been taking place for past few months.
All right, let's take a legal point of view here. Bhavtosh, please to stay on with us. Swapnil Kothari is with us here on the broadcast. Swapnil, good morning to you. How does it envisage as far as the ED now stepping into the picture, and allegedly as far as FEMA violations that are also concerned here, how do we link it here to the BBC?
Well, you know, the BBC is an offshoot of a foreign organization. So the Foreign Exchange Management Act, the Foreign Contribution Regulation Act, all of these come into play. And these are very, very tight-knit rules. I mean, there is very little room to maneuver around them. So if you do something which you're not supposed to do, then you're easily caught within the net of these two legislations. I wouldn't call them draconian, I would call them proper legislations, because those are there to preserve foreign exchange in this country and to ensure that there is no hawala rackets that are going on. Now, if a reputed organization like the BBC has been caught into some sort of a net, I'm sure that the Enforcement Directorate is doing or is knowing what it's doing.
Does it come under a criminal offence, Swapnil?
Yes, definitely. FEMA will have a criminal aspect to that as well, and I'm sure they'll tie up with some aspects of IPC as well. So, you know, they'll all work in concert, Amita, so there's no question about it. And I only hope that this investigation is pursued and is not dropped halfway or midway, just because tomorrow if BBC starts singing good songs about India. So I hope that this is pursued, because this is more of a legislation which looks at foreign exchange violations in that sense. So that should be the paramount concern, not whether they sing praises for us, because we don't need their praises. We are self-sufficient. We don't need them at all. As to what they talk about us outside the world, it doesn't really matter, because our Prime Minister has done a fantastic job. So I hope that the Enforcement Directorate does its job, because we see a lot many raids, a lot many investigations, and then those don't take fruition, Amita, and that's the reason the opposition then has a chance to say that these are all political vendetta, this is all Bollywood bashing. This is all.
Well, they have already been raising that voice there already, Swapnil, as we have been speaking to many of those opposition leaders, saying that the investigation must be done without any preconceived notions and without any vendetta in mind. Thank you very much, Swapnil, for joining us here and helping us understand the legal point of view. But Bhavtosh, the Enforcement Directorate, we are told, that has initiated this investigation. It is not new. However, the ED has also been recording the statements of the executives of the BBC.
Yes, that bit is something that we can confirm to our viewers, that their executives have been called in, and this has been happening for a long time. This is taking place since February of this year, and statements of some executives have been recorded. Some editorial position, staffers of editorial position, they have also been called in at the New Delhi office, which is also the headquarters of the Enforcement Directorate. They have been called in. But remember, FEMA is not a criminal offence, unlike the money laundering, in which ED has passed to arrest someone and, in fact, arrest that individual and attach the assets. FEMA is civil proceedings in which they can impose fines. Attachment as well as seizures can take place under FEMA also. So it's a tough act, one can say, and it offences under FEMA has been initiated against some Chinese mobile phone companies before money laundering cases were initiated against them. So one has to wait and see how this case progresses. Remember, it was only in February February that Income Tax Department had carried out raids and searches, in fact carried out surveys against BBC, and then subsequently issued a statement, an official statement against BBC.
Well, it remains to be seen if BBC will be reacting to this as well or not. Last time when this income tax surveys that were being conducted, the British Broadcasting Corporation had come out with a statement saying that all of the employees will be cooperating with the investigative officials. For the moment, Bhavtosh, thank you very much for joining in.